I know all of y'all, but I'm Abby Henley, the assistant principal and athletic director here at CLP Middle School.
And I'm Deputy Schultz. I'm the school resource officer here in Middle Schools.
And next door and Belton Mountain Schools as
and
well.
Three Mountain Schools. I have a couple.
This is the third year of doing a cell phone safety type presentation. We did this similar presentation. We made some adjustments to be up to date 2 years ago. Last year we had Keith Maynard, another SRO in the district, come and more of a conversation presentation. And so we had a lot of good feedback about the information here, and we have information for y'all to take with you. So with that, thank you for spending an evening with us, because we are really busy, and I appreciate you guys being engaged. We're going to talk a little bit about cyberbullying and how it can happen, and some of the negative things that can happen on phones that we're not necessarily aware of, and how you can keep, let's just say, your kids safe, smart, and responsible online. So really, what are some actionable things you can do and some tools that you can use? Because our kids' phones are definitely the #1 form of communication for teens. I would say that includes both their cell phones and their laptops right now, especially with every student in the middle school and high school in the district getting a 1-to-1 laptop. And the last time they ran this statistic, they send 1,500 to 1,800 texts per month, which seems absurd, but I think is very accurate, if not has risen since this statistic was taken. And then that very true thing of kids who have these phones and who have that access to that information consider that internet, what they get through Wi-Fi, as important to them as air, water, food, and shelter. And which sounds a little jokey, but when you see their access to it, or the change in their behavior when they have access or they don't, it is very true, and it's very real for them, which is something that I have worked very hard in the past 5 to 6 years when we've seen such an increase in students having their cell devices, and that's a whole nother layer to their world of being very respectful in how I communicate with students, and not being so jokey about, well, you and your apps, or it's just this, or it's just that this is a very real thing for them, because that FOMO, that fear of missing out, is very much more prevalent now than it was. I think this is kind of a spoof on what that is, but when I hear this a lot, I have a son at our school who's a 6th grade boy, and he has his dad working next door to me here, so he doesn't need a phone right now, which is convenient for me. But I've had the number of conversations I've had about his fear of missing out have been heartbreaking for me to have as a parent, but they have times 10 the frequency, if not more, that I've had those heard from him about those in coming to middle school than I did just last year. So this is very real for them.
Yeah, I've been hearing about lots of crazy things happening tonight. Things you don't forget. Things people be talking about for weeks.
Dana, what is it?
It's nobody.
Everyone must be hanging out somewhere else. Guess you're
Missing out.
Randy Talbert's parents are letting him have a party in their abandoned play of land.
Everyone's tweeting about it. Wish I didn't have to work tonight.
It's Julie's sorority thing. Everyone's posting about it.
Weren't you invited?
Well, no. She said it was a small thing. Oh my god. Even Tom was invited. Tom with the skin thing. Hi, I'm looking for Holly.
Holly's not been here since about an hour ago when she left to go to the movies.
That's impossible. We were supposed to go together. Foursquare says people are hanging out at McSwiggan's Ale House and TGI Fridays. I have to choose.
What are you gonna do?
I'll just stop by one, and then I'll head to the other. These people, they're having so much fun without me. What am I supposed to do about this, Juno? Juno?
which is
So if you
funny.
think that was funny, click on our faces to subscribe to College Humor's YouTube channel. And if you didn't think that was funny,
Okay.
Yeah, I've been hearing about lots of great.
So, jokey for sure, but I really do have a lot of students in my office, as does Miss Duke, where we're processing with them behaviors that come into the school or needs that kids have that they're not able to pay attention to Miss Gadwood teaching English because this is what they're worried about. It was Rollerland, it was somebody's birthday party, and there's these sometimes intentional manipulations of leaving kids out, and sometimes just this obsession of what is happening, what is my social status. And so while it's funny to watch, I said this need that kids have sometimes of wondering what is happening without them is very real. So we're going to talk about kind of what are the ways that they're accessing this information online. This is just kind of like a quick true false, what do you think? All the statistics are just on the back, so if you don't want to cheat, don't look at the back, because that's where the answers are. But I really don't care. We'll go through them as we kind of talk about them. They're not super shocking, but a good conversation starter. Here, yeah, or at home. We'll kind of hit on a lot of this as we go through in more detail, but that question of when is the right time to get my child a phone? And a smartphone is a whole nother level and layer to that question because there's a difference between, I know my friend had one of the watches that, like certain programmable numbers that they could contact because she was always walking home from school for her daughter, and now the same daughter has an iPhone that she has a year later, but 6th grade, like is that the right time to say now have access to everything that a smartphone has access to? And I don't know, and I don't think this advice of true, false, and what are the right answers is coming from CyberSense Media, or Common Sense Media, which is a website I always use before I show my kids movies, and I can kind of look through to see what's the gore, what's the sex, what's the language, what's the morality kind of ratings. Also the National Cybersecurity Alliance, and then the Research Center Pew. So this is according to them. But I know that we would agree, and we'll touch on it in a little bit too, of there's not an age that your child, especially 6th grade children, if you watch their behavior, you'll see such tremendous differences in two children from the same family and how they act in 6th grade that come to our school. And so that maturity level of what your child is capable of handling is honestly where that lies. And most importantly, do they follow your rules, and do they have a sense of responsibility? Is the recommendation in terms of when is it appropriate to give a smartphone to a child? text photos and videos posted on Snapchat disappear forever. Have you all heard your kids talk about what they put on Snapchat disappearing? Because that is the belief. Because if you post something and then it goes away in 24 hours, well then nobody will know. It'll be like this fun little social test of what happens, and then it goes away. And to be honest, your child gets a notification if someone screenshots what they put on Snapchat, but then it's out there for that person to text to whomever they want. The other thing that I honestly recommend to kids to do, if they're in a social situation and they see something on Snapchat that hurts their feelings or they think might be potentially dangerous or they need help with, is I tell them to take another phone and take a picture of the screen, so I don't put them in a situation of them outing them to their peers for screenshotting something that the original poster will be notified that they did, because that ends up causing some potential negative behaviors amongst kids of, you screenshot that, I know you're the one who told the teacher, or you told my mom, and causing a problem for that child. So there's ways for kids to record, and adults to record what is posted on Snapchat that lives forever and gets spread, potentially. YouTube, most popular platform teens use, which we were surprised by that is true. And I think the capabilities that they're having on YouTube is increasing some of that communication between kids, because they were losing audience to seeing what that draw is for kids to talk to each other on Instagram or Snapchat. So they are on YouTube quite a bit.
So they can talk to each other through YouTube?
They can post and comment on what is on YouTube. I also, my son is asking me if he can put videos on YouTube. Like, he's doing something at a friend's house and talking about how he was going to put it on YouTube. I'm like, no. Like, you don't put anything on YouTube that you don't want others to see, like, in the future. So I think that draw of being on the internet is pretty strong. Most teens don't make new friends online. More than half, they say, have made a new friend online, whether that's a real friend. Sometimes it is. I find out a lot of conversations about how do you even know that person, or what is your connection? Why would you have an issue with somebody at Blevins how do you even know them? Well, I met them through this group that was all on the phone, and then we met in person because of that. Or I then have also had girls tell me that they friend everyone, so then they have somebody saying they're going to show up at the school because they know where they live, because their information is all in that app. So fake friends, or what they consider as friends, because of that draw of having followers. Most parents are aware of the social media sites or apps that their teens use. I don't think they would put that on there if it wasn't false, but that's kind of the point, right, of shocking people to be aware. But I just had a conversation at home last night about my 7-year-old saying he put Hello Neighbor on an iPad at our house, and then my husband looked it up and he's like, have you seen what this is? And we looked at it like that's absolutely unacceptable, and so we took that off right away. But I think it's pretty easy for kids, especially when they have their own device, to be adding new content, as well as we have a document that shows like the 17 most popular apps right now, and they're different than when we printed it 2 years ago. And it's hard for us to keep up with what they're using, because the big joke is if I talk about Facebook, everybody knows how old I am, because that's so lame to the students.
I guarantee you by the time it takes me to pass these out to you guys,
We'll get
there's
to
going
that
to be a new app
Right.
that shows up, and or one's going to get changed or modified.
And that's what I mentioned. When they're talking about teens, this is applicable to adolescents as well. They often let friends follow them on social media to appear popular. So that need to have as many friends as possible is so strong that they end up allowing people to follow them that they don't trust and they don't like and they don't know. So it's just a draw that creates potential danger or risk. And Many teens say their parents are a major source of learning about staying safe online. And so,
Yes.
what's that?
Yes, it says it's true.
Yeah, it is true. 47% of teens say their parents are among the top 3 sources of safety information. We don't have enough time to talk, like we talk about computer safety. I know Deputy Schultz goes into the computer classrooms to talk about this. The main source of where kids are getting their information about what to do with their phones is from other kids. And so the fact, y'all are the most powerful influence in your child's life in everything, but for sure with their phones, and which is good because you pay for them, so you should be. Information on child's private social media profiles is secure. So, right. One of the things that the packet of information about some specifics about the newer apps that kids are using will demonstrate and have some specifics about just the apps themselves, not maintaining your child's privacy, but also the fact that the number of times that screenshots come into our office is absurd. So it really is a source of spreading information. And then taking a smartphone away is the best way to enforce rules on social media safety. Yeah, because both when you talk to kids or parents, like the most effective way to get them to stop doing something they shouldn't be doing is to lose access to doing it. And then most teens are satisfied with the amount of time they spend online. So it's interesting. They said 20% of teens say they spend too much time online, and 46% say they spend a little more than they'd like. So when you look at that, that is 74%. So that leaves about 26 saying they think they should get more, which whether they should or not, I don't know. I guess it depends on how much they get now. Because we do have, kids who talk to me that have complete lockdown and no access at all, to students who tell me that they're on their phones or computer or streaming video until 1 o'clock, and that's why they're exhausted when they're in first period. So we're going to talk a little bit about the way that kids get to other kids and to fun. I mean, there's positive things, like I want to be real clear, like there are positive outcomes of technology. And we are not anti-technology. This is the first year that our school had a no cell phone during the day policy, because I have always been a very strong advocate that this is a part of their life and part of their social world. So our jobs as schools is to teach them how to do that appropriately. It's the same way we did back in the day of not passing notes. Well, now we're going to teach them not to text during the class. And I was arguing for teaching them to use it appropriately. And as I watched the effects, as we all watched the effects of the research of the addiction piece and the inability for their cognitive brains to let go and not think about that, we saw a lot of students who just couldn't stop. And if it's in their pocket, it buzzes. That is a legitimate need. They could be a very well-behaved student. I do that in conversations with my husband, and I'm like, I just got mad at him for looking at, Facebook while we're trying to watch a family movie, and I just did the exact same thing because, well, what if it's work? And so I think for us to expect 11 and 12-year-olds to let go of that is unreasonable and scientifically impossible. So there are benefits to them accessing this word and problem solving and engaging, and then we see some negatives as well. So the main one that we talk to parents about, you especially, is access to strangers, and then so the dangers that can be involved with that. Secondly, that they can be anonymous without accountability for their actions, and so those are the main conversations. Is when I do script or screen shoot what kids have said and share with their parents, it's like a totally different person that they can't imagine this would ever come out of that child's mouth, which I agree. But there's this cloak of safety that you do things on a phone and through typing because you aren't having to say that face to face. So that's kind of that power that they get, which creates problems because they don't necessarily think through or that empathy or sympathy of how they might affect others. We see problems that come from that. And I did all these whites myself because it was totally inappropriate, everything that was on here. But it does match what ends up in our office of how kids are talking to each other in terms of the language that I just don't ever hear them say with their vocal cords. It's just different and it's concerning. So text messaging is a big way that kids are communicating with each other. Kick and Text Now are two other forms of those messaging sites. So what we're going to let you leave with, because we're not going to spend a ton of time of going through each individual app, but as you see things on your child's phones, you'll see these. I have them in the presentation in the same order as are in this document. So these first ones are just texting. So there's different ways to message other kids. And you will see, for example, with Kick, it's free, there's no limits, then you're not charged. Stranger danger is an issue because it allows communication with strangers who share their usernames, so they find people to chat with. So there's different marketing tools that also can create problems for students with different apps, and so that's why giving you, the most power you can have is just through resources of knowing what are the specifics of what your children might be on. Photo and video sharing, we see Instagram quite a bit, not as much Facebook, and honestly that D symbol is not one that I use. TikTok is another. I have learned Instagram and Twitter for sports stuff, but outside of that, our students are using these messaging ways, and we do see a lot of methods of potentially with the photo and video sharing. There was a string of students last year who the game was to post a picture of someone. They create an anonymous account, post a picture of one of our 7th grade students, and then write a bunch of nasty stuff about them. And then it happened to like 8 people, and then like trying to figure out who created that is really difficult. But so there are some ways of kids who are frustrated or kids who feel mad at a group have used photo and video sharing for just some mean behaviors. There's also a dare game of they put someone's name and then everyone writes comments about them, which never ends well for the student. And then there have been burn pages for Facebook that we haven't seen Facebook come up much at all outside of Facebook Messenger. And kids when they pull up their Messenger threads, that's where we see quite a bit of communication that ends up coming that causes social drama. So with that said, your child's Facebook page might be totally clean and probably not much on it. And then when you go to that top right corner with the talk thing where the messenger, that's where you then can find specifics of what they're talking about.
Also, along with that, you've got your initial Facebook or Instagram page that you guys can see, and it looks nice and clean, but there's usually a second one, or sometimes a third one involved. So a lot of that is sitting down with your kids and saying, hey, these are the rules of using social media, these are the dangers of it, and it's that educational piece big time. They're gonna do it. They're gonna make these burn pages, they're gonna make the second pages so they can talk back and forth with their friends, and they're not gonna get in trouble with mom and dad, because they do say things in text messages that you would never say face to face to a person at all. So hopefully I'm going the right way.
Yes.
Sweet. So this app, Yik Yak, drives me insane because it is completely anonymous. So you post comments about anybody, anything, whatever, anytime during the day, and nobody's gonna know who you are. And also, it also has a feature that, this makes my skin crawl, that if you're on Yik Yak, it will pull up who else is on that app within a 5 or 10 mile radius. So if you got kids here at school and they're on their phone or whatever before, thankfully not anymore, but like during lunchtime, if they're on this app, if other users are in the area or somebody driving by, it'll pop up and like, oh, hey, this person's on this app as well. A lot of Snapchat has that feature as well. You have to physically go into Snapchat, into the settings, and turn it off in order for your location not to be revealed, because it's an automatic thing. Vine is another one. There's no age verification at all. You post little videos about yourself. Of course, it says nobody under 12 can use the service, but how many of our kids never pay attention to the rules?
Are these apps you're talking about on this sheet?
Some of them are. These are also from sites. So you have access to the information that's here, as well as here are the 17 most popular right now, as well as I'm going to show you just some resources to see if your child has a specific app on their phone, where to find additional, if it's not in one of these, where to find that on our website too.
Yeah, and then feel free, seriously, to come find one of us, give us a call, shoot us an email, whatever. If you come across something on your kids' social media and you're like, I don't know what that is, but let's go find out. I guarantee you, sometimes I'll know what it is, and if not, we'll go find the answer. Because there are so many social media sites that are competing against each other, it's ridiculous. The other one is Tango. It's kind of like that free messaging through Facebook and Skype and all of that. I'll try and move around a little bit so I'm not blocking the screen so much. Again, another site that geographically will put your location on there. A lot of these apps have that accessibility. And it goes back to the fear of missing out, right? They're like, oh, all my friends are on this app. I need to be on this app so I know and I'm included. I'm not excluded from anything, and I know what's going on. Because heaven forbid our middle school kids or even high school kids are left out of the social media piece and what's going on and what's happening on a Friday night. A lot of these apps are pretty much the same. They just come up with a different name, different company creates them, but it's a lot of the same logistics. Tumblr is also a big one that I've seen in the past, not so much now. Again, no kids under 12 are supposed to use it.
And they just hit OK to get past that.
And yeah, there's your little screen. Well, I'm over 12. Click. And then they're in the whole entire site, and then nobody monitors it, nobody polices it. We contact the companies at times, are like, hey, you've got kids that are underage using your program and your site, what are you doing about it? Meh, is the answer we usually get. So it's really frustrating as a law enforcement standpoint, trying to enforce the law sometimes. The tags that you can use to go find stuff in your search engines, it'll make your spine chill. You type in porn and then it's gonna pull up anything and everything that anybody has posted on there. Ask FM, this was a big one that we saw a couple of years ago. That's where you will post that kid's name, or you make a list or a pact or whatever, and you can go in and add to it or make comments, and makes
Well, it's that
an interesting
anonymity,
read, too.
so
And-
kids post.
Mhm.
And there's positive things that come out of being able to have a place to put something out there that you want to get support from. And then the negative is not knowing who is going to be the one to respond with something in a 12-year-old's time of need.
It's almost that excitement piece a little bit. Snapchat. Sorry if I stop, the radio's talking to me. I'll try not to listen to that. But Snapchat, this one's a big one because Snapchat stuff disappears after you look at it. No, Snapchat keeps everything that is ever sent through their program. It's stored in the old data. They've got huge rooms with servers. It's mind-boggling, which is cool for law enforcement because then we can subpoena the company and be like, hey, here's our username, who does it belong to, and we need some information. They're really great with that. But it's also educating your kids too. What you put out there, that stuff doesn't go away at all. It stays out there. Even though Snapchat disappears after you look at it. Omegle, this is that another anonymous site that you can log into, and it's completely random. So you create your profile, and this is anybody in the world, you can talk to anybody.
Which is promoted as talking to strangers, which is concerning.
Yeah, the things that, when I went through this presentation through Cyber Safety Cop, we brought up Omegle, and we actually chatted. Whole room full of cops, chatted with a whole bunch of people, and we got pictures like the top one, and then worse, where people were naked and doing things in front of their video camera, and all it is you click next, and it's just completely random, and it's like a deck of cards. You shuffle it, and you get connected with somebody else that's completely new. And I'm telling you guys this so you guys are educated to the point where you know what apps are safe and which ones are not so safe for your middle school kiddo or even high school kiddo to use. Self-destructing apps as well haven't been a big issue for us here, but they're out there. You post pictures or little memes of something, and then you can send it or message it to somebody else. It's got this super cool feature that you can hide it from your parents if you want. So it's trying to appeal to the kids. This is literally just a handful of apps that are out there. Every year, us school resource officers meet together. We update on social media stuff every single year because it's always changing. I could fill up pages and pages of social media stuff that would just blow your mind, what's out there and what the kids have access to. These are some of the more common ones though. So, what happens when your kids go online? Who's out there? Who's watching your kids? And quite frankly, some of these stats scare me. So, the US stat there, 747,000 are registered sex offenders in the US as of 2013. I guarantee you that number's a lot higher this year from what it was in 13. 30% of the victims that are online are boys that get offered sexual exploitation, and 70% are girls. These stats are pretty similar. Again, all of these are from 2013, but except for the one on the US, because I know that one's a little higher, everything else is still pretty much status quo as far as the ratios and what's out there. The 1 in 5 US teens who regularly log onto the internet, they've received some kind of solicitation for a sexual favor, of one form or another. This is usually how they'll hook in with the strangers or the random people online. They'll start chatting, they'll start asking questions. Hey, what do you like to do? What's your favorite color? What's your dog's name? Oh, hey, send me pictures. And educating our kids, don't send those pictures. Don't send them ever. Trying to teach adults not to do that either, because once you put them out there, it's like that forever grasp. You're trying to get it back, but it's always that one step ahead of you. You cannot get those pictures back. Law enforcement does a good job of trying to scrub the internet for the best we can, of contacting sites and making them take that media down. Sometimes we don't get all of it. And that's a lot of exhausting work in order to try and take pictures and almost recall them from these sites sometimes. This last one in the corner here, the 100% of the cases that all the victims were willing to meet the people they've met, they've talked with online. Every single one of the kids. That scares me half to death as a cop. So what can we do to protect our kids? Know who's following them. Who are their friends? Are they here just in the middle school? Are some from Pooter? Are some from Blevins? Or are they from Fossil? Where are your friends from? Be involved in your kids' cell phones and their social media online, because that way, one, they can't hide anything from you guys, and they know that expectation. what I put out there, my mom and dad are gonna see it. They're gonna know what I'm putting out there. So they don't have to worry about trying to make that second account. Or they know if they do, they're gonna get busted. So have a discussion with your kids about what's their criteria for approving friends. Do they just get a request and they hit accept? Or do they actually know the person? Is it somebody they go to school with, or is it somebody they've talked on the phone, or is it somebody they've met, or is it a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend that they heard is cool, so if I'm friends with them, so I'm cool. Those are all those discussions you gotta have with your kiddos to make sure who's following them and who's not, honestly. That way you know that they're safe while they're online. A lot of times, the social media accounts aren't automatically set to private. And what private means is that you make a Instagram account or a Facebook account, it's all out there for the public to see, every single last bit of it, unless you set it to private and you lock it down. And in all my classes I teach for the web and cell phone use, I tell them, set your accounts to private, because that means all the bad guys that keep us busy as cops can't see all your information. They don't know how old you are, they don't know where you go to school, they don't know all your personal information. And then plus it's also protecting them from any fraud potentially as well. Because what middle school kid is gonna think about fraud? Somebody stealing my name and birthday or social security number, and then all of a sudden they have all this debt racked up because they bought a yacht or a brand new car or something, and they have no idea. And sometimes as parents, we don't think about that either, because we're busy running kids to soccer practice and football and wrestling and doing all that day-to-day stuff. You don't think about all the other, what's happening behind the scenes with that. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Would you guys go down this alley? I know it's a really corny picture. It's dark, 12 o'clock at night. Do you see the creeper in the corner? It might have taken you a minute or two as you're scanning through the picture, but think of this like the internet. It's that dark alley that you don't know what's down there, and usually the creeper's standing in the doorway just waiting and watching. I show your kids that when I teach them that too, and the reaction I get is about the same as I was looking around the room with the faces like, no, I don't want to go down there. It's creepy, it's dark, it's dingy. But I get an animated response when the little arrow points to the head, and they're like, oh, I did not see him. So just some of the educational pieces for them as well. So what do? Have that face-to-face talk with your kids and educate them as far as who's following you. Explain the dangers of the internet. Why do you want them to be your friend? Talk to them about the risks of logging in online and social media and then putting out all their personal information out there on the internet. And then I know this is probably would be tedious, because some kids have upwards of hundreds of friends, but if you can, review their friends with them. Go through and clean house if need be. Who's following you? Do you know those people? Do you know the parents? Do you know the kids? Is it that face-to-face relationship that they have? Or is it that social media, that online persona? So, and then set criteria for following and friending people.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? This isn't like there's scary potential, but you have a lot of power. Okay, so the whole point is, well, what do you do, or what do we do? Because I need to do all this also, and it's overwhelming sometimes, but it's not impossible. That open conversation about what we have access to or what they have access to starts with the fact that I bought you this computer, because that's what phones are, is they're computers. So the computer you're holding is mine. It's not yours because you don't pay for it, and you're a child. So I am in charge of what you do with that computer that you carry around with you during the day. And so you can follow my rules that I set for you and the agreements that we come up with together, if that's your parenting style, as is mine. And I mean, I respect both of those methods. But you lose it if you don't follow the expectations that we set, because you're a child and I paid for your computer. So having those conversations, these are 2 tools that are offered by that Cyber Safety Cup that have been updated. So one of them is a parenting in the digital world checklist. So just recommendations of the conversations to have, things that you can do as a parent, that I can do as a parent with my son. And then a suggestion for a contract that you write with them. And I think there is some power for me to sit down with Ben and say, you know what, number 10, if he says I want to be able to tell you or Gigi, like telling my mom, like I don't always want to bring everything to you. Okay, and let them make an adjustment to this contract that they're signing and getting that buy-in of what everyone agrees to. But having some sort of agreement so that it is upfront, and I think it's okay that even if they had a phone for a year or 2 years, to reset and say, you know what, I've learned some more stuff about what you can do with your phone, and I got scared. And so I want to talk to you about what you can and can't do with this computer that you're holding. And I do think that idea of that opportunity for grace, they're going to make mistakes. And so the way that we handle the mistakes that they make on their phones and within their social interactions really affects what they bring to you the next time. So I think a lot about the way that I respond to students who end up in my office for poor choices really affects how honest they are with me the next time I talk to them. So if they believe either they get an empty threat of losing their phone that they know won't really happen, then it won't matter at all. But also if they do believe that they're going to lose their phone for the rest of middle school, if you find out that they make a mistake on their phone, then they're going to hide more from you. So figuring out that balance of that communication of how you respond, I think is really, really important. I'm obsessed with this movie, I think, but it's been a little while.
And another thing we've decided is to cut
Yes,
back
okay.
on all of the electronics we use. Basically, what we're going to do is get rid of the Wi-Fi and only use the computer from 8 to 8:30 at night.
How are we gonna go on the computer?
We're going to have a hard line in the kitchen.
Yeah, we'll supervise that.
You can't do this. You can't take away the Wi-Fi.
No Wi-Fi.
You don't spend enough time with the family when you're constantly on your iPhone and your computer, and you're only here for 5 more years.
So you won't see me after 5 years?
No, but you won't be living with us. And you should get to know your little sister.
You got the perfect friend right here.
I don't want to be friends with her now. I'll be friends with her when she's 20 and a normal person.
I want to hang out with her when I'm in my 20s.
You're on the computer too much as it is. You need to get outside more. Do some playing outside.
Yeah, you can build things out. You can build a fort outside.
What?
Yeah, build a fort. Play with your friends and have
Make a fort outside? And do what?
Have little.
Do what in the fort?
When I was a kid, we used to build tree houses and play with sticks.
Nobody plays with sticks.
You and Charlotte can have a lemonade stand.
Play kick the can.
Look for dead bodies.
That's fun. That's fun to do.
Get a tire and then just take a stick and run down the street with it.
Nobody's done that crap. It's 2012.
You don't need technology.
No technology.
Charlotte, put that down.
I don't need to be monitored all the time on the computer. I don't do anything bad.
Nobody said you were bad.
I don't do things I'm not supposed to. I don't illegally download music. I don't look at porn like Wendy.
She is up to no good. She's not allowed to come over here anymore.
What's porn?
No, she said corn.
This isn't turning out the way I wanted it to.
I'm not hungry.
No computer.
Listen to your mom.
I need to use it for my homework.
She's outplaying us.
I know. She's tough.
And there's the rub, because that's true, and we put things in place that we can enforce. And I told we're not doing any technology between dinner and you go to bed. And then my husband and I both look at our phones. And then Ben tells me he's a Spanish test, and I got that email from Herman that he's supposed to study on Quizlet. So there's just this communication, I think, of that, figuring out that balance of what's real and what's realistic and what we can do as parents versus what's necessary. And I lost what I was going to say with that, but the conversation, opening up that for having an open dialogue. And I remembered what I was going to say to that is we talk to our kids about playing with sticks and tires when we don't know what to say. And we just start going into these unreasonable recommendations and conversations of what we're going to do. But I do know that if you're prepared going into the conversation with, here's some guidelines that I'm comfortable with setting before you having this conversation from a place of frustration because they've been on looking at their phone all day or they've been on their laptop, or then we can have a reasonable plan that doesn't, a reaction that makes for good TV humor. How old for social media? Most of the sites say 12 or 13. Again, it's like when you go to the New Belgium website and you just put in what birthday is your birthday, and then you find out when brewery yoga is. Like, you get past all of them by just clicking OK or putting in the birthday that you choose to put in. So honestly, it goes back to what do you trust in that response from your child? Are they going? Or do they typically listen to the rules you set? Do they listen to the rules you set when they know they're being monitored, or do they not listen to you at all? And you should get them a flip phone, maybe. But it's hard to say because I see sixth graders who you could trust completely with access to any app or website, and they're going to let you know if they see something inappropriate because people should be told, and they're going to take care of others. And that is true, and I love it. But I also, love our kids who have all of this living in their brain as well, and they can't handle the open access to everything. And so that is where there is not a single answer. But what we can do, and this slide stresses me out because I work in a middle school and I have 2 children, and I've taught this class before, and I spend a lot of time dealing with individual situations with kids, and I have no idea half of the things that they can do on their phones. But I don't feel like this because the general rules of how to set it up so I can access what my kids are doing is what I'm going to trust. And I don't need to be aware of every single new app that's out there. I just need to be able to look at my child's phone and have the open conversation with him about this. I have access to this, and I'm going to go through it whenever I want because you're going to charge it next to my bed. These are just some of the comments that kids put in their text, some of the codes, what they mean, and that are, do you like me? And that's cute. That's fine, right? But if let's meet in real life implies that they've never met before, and that scares me. So just knowing what some of these mean, you can just do a search on the internet too, and you find all the funny ones of the mom texting their son when they trick them into saying somebody died, and then she's like LOL, and you're like, well, wait a minute, and then I think, well, isn't that lots of love? The jokes of how we trick our parents into believing what we want them to think. Just some ways to look to see on a whiz after school. You don't have to know all these acronyms. You just need to know where to look. So if you just go to specific, like Urban Dictionary, now we have their lingo, and that is updated with what they talk about. And so it's just as you see things, ask them to explain it to you without freaking out on them when they do, and then check them. These are some of the hard conversations I have on phone calls about what children are saying to other kids and explaining what it means to parents. But I have to look them up too because it changes, and they talk about new things.
Yeah. Just when we find out what their lingo is, it changes to something else.
Of course.
So Urban Dictionary is actually a pretty good one that I've used as a resource to figure out what the kids are talking about.
And so come up with that plan with them. Here's your phone. This is how frequently I'm going to check it. This is where you keep it so I know you're not on it past a certain time of night. What is their process for downloading a new app? Is that something that they have to ask you permission? Is that something that they could do on their own and you're going to see? And there's not just like a perfect answer, it's what are you comfortable with and what works between you and your child. There are some vault apps to be aware of, so there's a lot of power in, one, just the emotional and psychological relationship of your child being comfortable with you holding their phone is really important, because just that in itself can if they're not, then we've got to move past that, because that is often a barrier. But some apps you have to actually open to see what is in there. This is a video explaining how those work that I'm not going to play because of time. But basically what it does is you open an app, it looks exactly like a calculator, and then you put in a code, and it's a whole storage for photos, videos, messages of things that they're just trying to hide from any adult that's going to look at their phone. So even though, like, it's just to know that those exist, and they might not look like these three, but if you actually have your child's phone every once in a while and you open up their apps, you can see if it doesn't work as a calculator.
You can see what they downloaded from the Play Store or from iPhone store. I'm new to iPhone, so whatever the heck they call the store for iPhone. But see what they've downloaded, because it'll show you, or have it linked to your guys' account. So if they download something, they have to go through you to get it, but you know if they're downloading stuff like that.
There are parental controls just through all of your carriers. So when you just call Verizon and say, where do I find on your website? I want you to, something that explains logically what are the ways that I can put some limits on my child's access, whether that's times of day that they can be on, like turns access to the phone that has cell service, whether that is through your wireless router is also a really powerful one of just, it turns off Wi-Fi at a certain time or to specific devices. And a limiting number of texts or chats that they could do, so maybe they're more thoughtful about what they put out there. But the conversation to have is about that reputation. And then I will show you when we're done just where these resources live on that website, because there's specific directions for iPhone of how to have limits on that specifically, and I'll show you because they keep that pretty current and updated.
We touched on this a little bit earlier tonight, but I'm like, what are we teaching our kids? What are we putting out there? Are they protecting their reputation? And this is the question I ask all the kids in my classes. Is your digital reputation and your personal reputation, your daily one, are those different or are they the same? And I get a show of hands. Who says they're different? I get a few hands that go up. Who says that they're the same? And I get a lot more hands that go up. And then we have a discussion on why those should be the same and they should be mirrored. And I use a great analogy. Don't do something that you wouldn't do standing naked in the middle of College and Drake, because it's got the traffic cam. So people running the light because they're distracted, there's going to be pictures of what's happening in that intersection. So if you wouldn't do it there, don't do it online. And you kind of get that head tilt, and you're like, oh, I wouldn't do that in the middle of that intersection. I shouldn't probably do it on the computer either. So have that talk with them. Being able to almost go down to their level and be able to talk in terms that they understand. And when you tell them don't do something in the middle of an intersection that you wouldn't do online, they get it. So the stuff they put out there, it's out there. It's forever. It will not retract unless you can completely wipe an account. Sometimes the pictures that are taken that I end up having to deal with on a law enforcement standpoint, we do our best to recall those pictures if we need to, or do damage control if they're sent to a lot of people. But sometimes those have lifelong consequences. Something you do in middle school, you wouldn't, our kids don't think, what's going to happen to me 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But I know I didn't have that thought when I was here in this building. Like, I'm just going to have fun, I'm going to learn things, and I'm going to hang out with my friends, and I'm going to enjoy life. But as I'm now back here in the same school I went to as a cop, I'm like, wow. One, I grew up a little bit, not a lot, just a little. So I'm able to relate to the kids pretty good. But you also find out the decisions you make now will affect you and can affect you when you get older. So having that honest, quite frank conversation with them that I do in our tech classes, it really drives that point home with them. This is the, are you guys good if we go past the little 6? Because we're 6 now. Video that I show the kids about digital reputation. This was a young man that was in high school going into college.
Everybody has a dream. I had mine. My dream was to play baseball for a university. My favorite university growing up as a kid. So every day I was there after school, taking cuts, boom, boom, just taking cuts, just trying to, get, I guess, cut closer to my dream, So, one day I come back, from practice, and I run to the mailbox. I get a letter in the mail. You got accepted. You're on the baseball team. Everything is going awesome. Finally, I got into my school, my choice. I'm playing baseball for it. It's a dream come true. Everything is working so well. So here I am, just some small-town kid at some big-time university, and I'm just like wide-eyed, going crazy, just having a ball with everything. So my first semester, one day after practice, a bunch of the guys were going out to a party, and I'm like, all right, cool. Sounds like something to do. So there we are. We go to the party. Somebody hands me a beer. I'm like, okay, it's my first college party. Why not? Take one down. Boom. First beer. And he hands me another one. Oh, come on, keep going. Boom. Another one. And I probably had a few too many beers, and I'm starting to act dumb. I'm just like, what's up? Taking pictures. Got my beer. It's like, you want that? Like, just being dumb because I'm drunk. I'm starting to act crazy. So a buddy of mine's walking around with his camera phone, just taking pictures of everybody acting dumb. And then here he goes. He gets a picture, snaps it. I got a beer in my hand. So a few days later, I find out this picture's on the internet. And everyone's seen it. Everyone sees it. Baseball friends, my coach. I didn't even think my mom saw it. So here I am, everything taken away. Just like a scholarship, gone. Baseball, gone. School, gone. My dream, gone. All because of some picture on a camera phone. Everything I worked for, every day after school, gone.
So I'm not here to freak you guys out. Not trying to scare you guys, but letting our kids know and having them understand what they put out there, both socially and then online, those have repercussions if they make choices. And then protecting themselves, making sure that what they're putting out there, both in real life and online, is the same. And it's something that they want everybody else to know that that's how they're representing themselves in a good way and not a bad way. So we go over part of who's looking into my social media accounts. Colleges, employers, and I'd almost guarantee you now those numbers are a heck of a lot higher, almost close to 100%, because I know when I got hired on at the sheriff's office in 2009, they checked me out. Like, what kind of person are we hiring? What kind of person is Schultz? We're giving him a gun and a car and a badge, and he can take people to jail and do all sorts of fun stuff, but is he okay? So they dive into my social media. They talk to everybody that has ever been involved in my life. And when we teach our kids about reputation and that digital reputation, They should be the same as the one that they give and they send out to everybody on a daily basis, face to face. So those things are totally the same and they should not be different at all. Every social media site has a link to report abuse on their site. It's usually buried way at the bottom. Or a link that you have to click on this link to get to here, to there, and then it'll tell you how to report abuse. But every site does have it, so sometimes it takes a little bit of digging to find it, but you can report those to the sites. You can also tell us too, because a lot of times it happens outside online. It may not be a direct effect to the school, but it usually does have that trickle-in effect because, I mean, all your kids go here. They're all friends in one fashion or another, and we are a small community, so sometimes it spreads like wildfire when something happens to somebody online. We do our very best to minimize that, but we need your guys' help as parents though too, to help us get ahead of it if there is any damage control to do, so. Phone's always on, at least for me, and the radio never shuts off. Cause I got this nice little doctor pager, so they always know how to get a hold of me. So, just an example where you can find it, it's usually not that easy. And then teaching our kids on how to deal with it. Do they just ignore the picture? Do they ignore the comments? Or do we take those pictures of it? And do they tell you? Do they tell us? And a lot of times, it's yes. I mean, our kids are great. They will come tell you. They come tell me. They come tell Himley. Like, hey, this happened online last night, and this kid's bothering me, or they're harassing me, or this picture got posted, or I made a really dumb choice, and this happened. Our kids are going to communicate with us, just having that non-freak out moment on them, because they will come back and talk to you and be able to have that dialogue with them, I think.
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is too, that says bully, but I want to be clear, like a lot of times this is between friends. So this was, I changed the title of this because it said like online bullying, but it's not always bullying. Like kids just argue sometimes and do mean things that isn't repeated or imbalance of power. And so what we see kids get caught up in a lot is they're gonna try to write it. They're gonna make this stop, and they're gonna keep telling them to stop until now they're cursing, and they got pulled in, and now we have 2 students who are putting inappropriate stuff on there. So I do think that first one is saying, let's make no once, like, hey, stop, or that's not cool, or giving them phrases to say that they can save face socially as well, and then that's when I'm talking about how they can take a picture of something with another phone that saves them from everyone on that thread seeing that they took a screenshot, or making sure that they don't delete everything because they want to go away, because that happens a lot as they come to my office. Well, I deleted everything, but then when I find it on the other child's phone, I see all of the things that the one who reported it said too, and then they get kind of stuck because then they were trying to fix it, and it might have been something that happened bad to them, but then they leave out the stuff that they did too. So I think just helping them problem solve through it so they know what to do. And what we do is we do not look, and I tell kids this all the time, I have no time to be searching what you are doing on your phone at night, and I really don't have time to respond to it. And I said, but I will if I have to. And the only time that we have to do that as a school is when it comes into the school. So there's kids like yelling in the hallway, or causing a safety concern, or they're not working in class because they can't work together anymore because of what happened on the phone. So just be clear, just because we try to problem solve with your children doesn't mean that we're looking to catch them in anything they might possibly do on their phone, because it's really not our goal. But we do want to support them, and so we want to open up that dialogue so they have multiple adults at school and at home to talk to problem solve, so they don't make mistakes that they can't take back. And that we really do give that message of your home is where this should solve first. Talk to your parents, talk to your parents, talk to your parents. And we will help you problem solve it, and we will help connect you to law enforcement if that's necessary. And then we pull in Deputy Schultz if it's a situation that he needs to be aware of.
And then, if again, off of that, if it's something you guys are seeing at home and it has the potential of mushroom clouding here at school and becoming a bigger issue, or you think it might start some stuff here at school, feel free. We've got our contact information later in the slides, but please feel free to give us a holler so we're all on the same page.
And this is just kind of a summary of that checklist of what you have that I don't need to read to you. But just the things that you can do proactively to help prevent this from being responsive. This is who made this presentation, so this is their big slide to promote. But we also get a lot of information from them, and it is a helpful one. And it is pretty up to date, and I'll show you where that is. So these resources are also 3 websites to go to find this information, and I put links to all of them, Cyber Safety, NetSmarts, and Common Sense Media on ours. So I'll show you where that is. Right now, I hope you guys know how to get a hold of me, at least, just from our school website. Eric is on there too. But like I said, and he said, we mean it when we say give us a call to problem solve with something. Just because he's law enforcement doesn't mean that it's going to be scary results from it.
No, my goal is less paperwork. So I will wholeheartedly rather problem solve and come up with a solution that doesn't involve a ticket or something else.
The whole department, I mean PD,
Yeah.
Fort Collins PD and Larimer Sheriff is the goal is the philosophy is not to ticket adolescents, and we work together to avoid that. Just on our website, if you go to resources and you just go down to parent resources, this is new. And so this presentation is here, so you can see the stuff that we use today, just so you have it, as well as the websites that we talk to. I put specifically, this is a newer directions for iPhones, because we see a lot of students with iPhones right now. But what you'll see, if you just go, I mean, you'll get there by going to Cyber Safety Cop 2. You'll have information under articles and as well as resources, but this apps and games is really helpful to go through, because you'll see this was posted October 5th. So this they put up last week is how to set up parental controls in iOS. That YouTube now has parental controls. Going on Snapchat. I had my boys were using Roblox. That was where I let my little one play like games all the time, because they look like little fake cartoony ones. And then we realized people just have access to just post their own creations on that site. And not only does it take up all of the data on your devices, but it also has really inappropriate content on there that I didn't know. Fortnite. So just this is very recent and up to date information. And so those links are just all from the website. So you have a place just to go to find these resources. And
How do you get there again?
yeah, if you are at just our CLP website on just the main page, and then just under resources, we have just parent resources, and that's a new tab. And so right now, it's this presentation as well as the back to school night video that was from that presentation too. But we'll, as we have parent information nights, we do have our Olveus is a separate tab with that presentation information, but because that's a school-wide programming that we do, but any other presentations we do for parents will be here. So I want to thank you very much for coming tonight, and then we will stop recording so that